here with me once again is Nathan.
Hey Sarah, so what kind of drink are we having this week? Very different color.
Well, this week we'll be drinking orange juice and tonic water. And for those of you who drink alcohol, feel free to add any alcohol of your choosing. And this week is called the Kermesse. That's because we'll be talking about the Kermesse of 1902.
So Sarah, what exactly is this Kermesse?
Well, the Kermesse was a festival that happened between March 31st and April 5th of 1902 and was to commemorate the men of Brantford and Brant County who served and died in Africa in the Boer War that was between 1899 and 1902.
So wait, there were men from Brantford and Brant County that went overseas to South Africa to participate in the war?
Yeah, there was actually a lot of men, and two of them were actually lieutenants. There was Lieutenant John Woodbourne Osborne and Nelson Builder. But they weren't the only ones, because there was also Private Taylor, Private R. Howell, Private J. Jefferson, Private G. Shepard, as well as Corporal Alfred Sherritt and Private J.C. Brandon.
Wow, that's a surprisingly large amount of people from Brantford. So what does this Kermesse term actually mean?
Well, Kermesse is a Dutch language term derived from kerk, meaning church, and mis, meaning mass, that became borrowed in English, French, Spanish, and many other languages, originally denoting the Mass said on the anniversary of the foundation of a church, and in honor of the patron. Such celebrations were regularly held in Low Countries like Belgium and the Netherlands, as well as in Central Europe and in Northern France, and were accompanied by feasting, dancing, and sports of all kinds. Actually, the first Kermesse was an annual parade to mark the events of the Brussels Massacre in 1370 in Brussels, where the entire Jewish population in the city were expelled.
So what exactly happened during this Kermesse?
Well, the Kermesse, which took place at the armories, was described as the most interesting fancy fair that had ever been held in Brantford. And on the first day of the festival, there it showed that the festival included many different things, including booths and performances. And some of the booths just included the Canadian booth, an English booth, an Irish booth, a Spanish booth, and many others.
So you mentioned booths and performances. So what kinds of things were there to do? And how much money did this cost? How much am I going to have to spend in order to have a good time?
Well, there was an art gallery, a candy booth, as well as a ping pong booth that hosted a tournament every night and had a 25-cent entry fee, to which the finals will be held on the last day of the Kermesse, as well as a lot of performances on the main stage of the building, including the Easter Lily Dance, a physical drill by the BCI cadets, the Dufferin Rifles Band, as well as a colonial march and theater performances as well.
So you say there's an art gallery. What's this art gallery like?
Well, the art gallery was the most pretentious exhibition that the city had ever been given up to this point, and included 52 paintings from various artists, as well as using various mediums such as oil paints and watercolors. Not only that, but there was some extremely valuable pieces in the gallery, and the entire collection valued around $10,000. Many of the pieces were loaned by citizens, but some were also contributed by Paris as well. And some of the artists that were represented in the gallery were H. Martin, D.E. Grant, and Honorable A.S. Hardy.
Okay, Sarah, I'm not a big art fan, but I like musical theater. So what was there to entertain me?
Well, not only was there entertainment in the form of paintings, but also theater performances. There was some musical productions by Miss Strong, Miss Stockwell, Miss Mabel Stockwell, and Mr. W. Slate. And this program was performed several times during the festival.
So what were the crowds like? Was it like the opening night of the Villages?
Well, on the opening night of the Kermesse, there was a big crowd, and even those who went the opening night said that they would come back for the following nights. Not only were there giant crowds, but the armories were completely decorated to fit the theme of the Kermesse. And this actually surprised a lot of people to how much it changed.
So with such a variety of events, how did people find out what was happening each night?
Yeah, and since each night had a different program, the expositor would actually release the program for that night of the Kermesse. And each night would kick off with a grand march and then would go on with the rest of that night's programs.
Wow, so there was actually quite a bit of stuff to do.
Indeed, and at the time, this would have been the biggest festival or event that happened at Brantford.
Okay, this seems like a big celebration, but I thought it was to recognize the soldiers that were fighting in the Boer War.
Well, in March of 1902, Alfred Sherritt, one of the men from Brantford that went off to war, wrote a letter to his mother, which the expositor actually published on April 1st of 1902. In the letter, it stated how long the trip was, what he saw when he got to South Africa, that the soldiers were being fed well, what the weather was like, as well as the new regiment that had arrived had to go into quarantine due to a contagious disease. And I'll be real with you, when I first saw that, I thought of the current world situation.
So who is this Alfred Sherritt then?
Well, Alfred was 23 years old and born in Brantford, and he was very fond of bike riding, and it was even his main sport. As well as he was recognized as one of the fastest riders in the Dominion. He also won more amateur championships than any other man in Canada at the time, as well as was selected to represent the Dominion in the World Championship in Vienna.
Okay, so how does he decide to leave Brantford and go to South Africa then?
Well, when the war started in the fall of 1899, Alfred actually volunteered along with a bunch of other men from Brantford. However, on April 1st of 1902, he tragically died because of his wounds, and this devastated his mother and sisters, and the community all gathered to give their sympathies and the condolences for the family.
Wow, that's quite the end of the tale of events to the Kermesse.
Yeah, and another sad thing is he actually died the day the expositor published his first letter into the papers. However, the expositor didn't publish that he was dead until the 7th. Anyway, join us next week for another episode of Brant History Happy Hour. And next week, our topic will be Old Homeboys Week.